Today is August 30th. It's the 243rd day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. On this day in 1967, Thurgood Marshall is confirmed as the first African-American justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Marshall is born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1908. He attends segregated schools in Baltimore, then Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, where he's classmates with future Harlem Renaissance writer Langston Hughes, jazz musician Cab Calloway, and Kwame Nkrumah, who goes on to become the first president of the newly independent nation of Ghana. In 1933, Marshall completes his formal education when he graduates first in his class from Howard University Law School. As a newly minted attorney, Marshall goes into private practice back in Baltimore. In 1934, he takes on the NAACP as a client, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, who engage his services for the Murray v. Pearson racial discrimination lawsuit against the University of Maryland Law School. Marshall and attorney Charles Houston win the case in the Maryland Court of Appeals, which sets a legal precedent that makes segregation in Maryland illegal. Marshall joins the NAACP full-time in 1936, and a few years later he establishes the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, the LDF. Over the next 25 years as head of the LDF, Thurgood Marshall argues some of the most important civil rights cases that go before the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1940s and 50s. Smith v. Allwright, in which the court strikes down the Democratic Party's use of whites-only primary elections in the South. Chambers v. Florida, in which the murder convictions of 4 black men are overturned based on coerced confessions, which the court rules are void under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. And in 1954, his most famous Supreme Court case, Brown v. Board of Education, in which Marshall successfully argues that segregation in public schools violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. In all, Marshall wins 29 of the 32 cases he argues before the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1961, President Kennedy appoints Marshall to the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Marshall's confirmation is held up by a group of Democrat senators who hold a grudge against Marshall for Brown v. Board and the end of segregation. He is confirmed several months later and serves on the appellate bench until 1965, when he's appointed U.S. Solicitor General by President Johnson, the first African American to hold that post. And 2 years later, Johnson nominates Marshall for the vacant seat in the highest court. On this day in 1967, Thurgood Marshall is confirmed as an Associate Justice by the Senate, 69-11. He's sworn in a month after his confirmation on this day, the first African-American Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Justice Marshall serves exactly 24 years. He joins a liberal court which is in line with his thinking. He supports rulings that protect individual rights and the right to privacy. He challenges discrimination based on race and sex, and he consistently supports liberal interpretations of social issues. But in the 2 decades he sits on the bench, the court appointments lead to a more conservative court, with Marshall often the lone liberal voice of dissent on cases involving the death penalty, affirmative action, and abortion rights. Thurgood Marshall, confirmed as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court on this day in 1967, retires from the court in 1991. He's replaced by Justice Clarence Thomas. Justice Marshall passes away in 1993 at the age of 84. Born on this day in 1930, the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, businessman, investor, philanthropist, and one of the richest men in the world. Buffett is born in Omaha, Nebraska. His mother is a homemaker and his father a stockbroker, who wins a congressional seat in the House of Representatives when Warren is 12. From a young age, Warren Buffett is fascinated with business and investing. He sells magazines and Coca-Cola door to door. He sells golf balls and stamps. With the money he makes, he buys his first stock when he is 11, 6 shares of Cities Service, a utility and gas company that later becomes Citgo. Buffett buys 3 shares for himself and 3 shares for his sister Doris. He buys them at 38. The shares fall to 27, but then they climb to $40 a share. And Buffett sells. And soon after he sells, the stock skyrockets to $200 a share. With this trade, Buffett learns a valuable lesson about market mood swings and the fallibility of trying to time the market. Before long, he will adopt a buy and hold strategy, buying stock in companies with strong prospects of future earnings that are priced below his calculation of their intrinsic value, and holding those shares forever. He gets a job as a paperboy delivering the Washington Post. He makes $175 a month. 30 years later, in 1973, when Buffett is an established investor, he will, over the course of several years, buy a 23% stake in the Washington Post, paying $11 million in all, while many other shareholders buy and sell Washington Post stock in the 80s and 90s, making millions on their trades. Buffett buys and holds. And by 2014, his $11 million investment is worth $1.1 billion. The power of compound interest. In the 1940s, he saves the money he makes delivering newspapers and uses his earnings to buy 40 acres of land that's farmed by a tenant farmer. Buffett is 14 years old, and he learns another valuable lesson about buying a business with a solid management team and getting out of their way, empowering them to run the company the way they know best. Buffett studies under the legendary Benjamin Graham at Columbia Business School. Graham is considered the father of value investing, and his book, The Intelligent Investor, is Buffett's Bible. Buffett says, quote, "Chapters 8 and 20 have been the bedrock of my investing activities for more than 60 years. I suggest that all investors read those chapters and reread them every time the market has been especially strong or weak." He returns to Omaha and launches his own investment firm, joining forces with Charlie Munger, another Omaha investor who will be Buffett's partner for the next several decades. They invest in the stock market and they begin buying businesses, one of which is a textile mill that is on its last legs. The mill originally shows signs of life, but eventually Buffett will shut the mill down and liquidate all of its assets, keeping only the company's name, Berkshire Hathaway. Starting in 1965, Buffett consistently grows the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio of stocks and businesses, achieving a compounded annual gain of 22%, compared to the S&P 500's compounded gains of 9% in the same time period. And it's a diverse portfolio, containing everything from insurance companies to financial institutions to food and beverage companies to oil and gas producers to chocolate candies and fractional private jets. Buffett's letter in the Berkshire Hathaway Annual Report is highly coveted by professional and amateur investors alike, who pore over every word to get an informative glimpse into Buffett's business and investment strategies. His annual letter also contains a wealth of life insights and folksy, sometimes off-color humor, like the joke he makes about needing to have patience when investing, writing, quote, "You can't make a baby in a month if you get 9 women pregnant." Or with regards to his hands-off ownership style of companies he buys, creating an environment in which the CEOs can maximize both their managerial effectiveness and the pleasure they derive from their jobs. He quotes his partner Charlie Munger, noting, quote, If you want to guarantee yourself a lifetime of misery, be sure to marry someone with the intent of changing their behavior. Thousands upon thousands make the pilgrimage to Nebraska every spring to sit at the feet of the Oracle of Omaha during the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. Buffett and Munger deliver their report, and then they do a question and answer session for several hours that is the highlight of every weekend. And there's also fun and games. Buffett is an avid ping pong enthusiast. At his 75th birthday party, he meets 9-year-old ping pong prodigy Ariel Singh. Buffett has an eye for talent, and when he meets Singh, he knows he's looking at it. Quote, "She's a killer. I knew right away she had the potential to be great because she had this determination. There was no doubt in my mind she was going to put in the hours." 2 years later, he brings 11-year-old Ariel Singh to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, where she takes on any and all challengers in ping pong. Singh's first challengers are Buffett and Bill Gates, who's also a serious ping pong enthusiast. Buffett jokes that they're going to go first to soften her up. She crushes them. Even teaming up against her 2-1, the two richest men in the world still can't beat her. Ariel Singh, who competes in the London 2012 Olympics, takes on challengers at 2 subsequent annual meetings over the years and remains undefeated. Warren Buffett is worth anywhere from $60 to $70 billion, depending on the day and how much money he's given away. But he still only takes an annual salary from Berkshire Hathaway of $100,000. And he still lives in the house in Omaha that he buys in 1958 for $31,500. He buys a new car every 10 years or so. He's not concerned with the trappings of wealth or building monuments to himself. He's more interested in reinvesting his profits into companies and, more specifically, people who have value, drive, and determination to excel in their chosen industries. So if he's not buying fancy cars and private islands and all that kind of stuff, what does the second richest man in the world buy? Coca-Cola. Warren Buffett drinks a lot of Coca-Cola. I'm not sure if he loves Coke because he owns 9% of the company, or he owns 9% of the company because he loves Coke. He drinks so much Coke that he jokes he's 1/4 Coca-Cola. He tells Fortune magazine that he usually drinks 5 cans of Coke a day, starting with a can in the morning to accompany his breakfast of potato sticks. Sometimes he has ice cream for breakfast instead. Warren Buffett, born on this day in 1930, says, quote, "I checked the actuarial tables and the lowest death rate is among 6-year-olds. So I decided to eat like a 6-year-old. It's the safest course I can take." There are 123 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I know I sound smarmy when I say that, but I really do mean it. I appreciate it. Thank you. And as a token of gratitude, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Your homework assignment is to read chapters 8 and 20 of The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. There will be a test. So if you're still listening, what we learned from history is that people don't learn from history. Talk to you tomorrow.